Hey guys, welcome to episode number 57. Today is Wednesday, so it's DIY Wednesday. And today we're going to learn how to build a nice little do-it-yourself filter, often referred to as a Skippy filter, for your turtles and your ponds. I'm going to make a miniature version here, but I'm going to show you all the steps that are involved. So come along with me and learn how to be a better aquarist. Alright, so before we get started, I just wanted to kind of walk you through a diagram of a Skippy filter, and then alternatively, a very similar filter that has popped up on Turtle Forum, which is lovingly known as a Wendy Filter. So first off, the Skippy filter. It's a very simple filter. They're oftentimes made out of 55-gallon drums. And the basic concept is you drill a hole in the top, and that's where your pump line comes in. So that's where your water is coming in. And the water goes all the way to the bottom, and then you have some sort of grate here at the bottom, which allows your water to exit the pipe and enter the bucket here. And then you basically fill the bucket completely full of some sort of filter media. It could be foam blocks, it could be scrubby pads, it could be anything that has a lot of surface area. And that's very much up in the air. Since this is a DIY filter, the cheapest, easiest thing that you can find is often the best. And just try to maximize your surface area while keeping your price low. And then what happens is this filter, or the barrel, fills up about 3/4 of the way full. And what happens is you have a bulkhead here which allows your water to just overflow, and that would go straight back into your pond. So your pump would have a pre-filter, the water would enter, go through your biomedia, and then overflow back into the pond. It's basically the simplest filter that you can possibly build. Some people use the 55-gallon food containers. Other people buy trash cans, the rubber trash cans, or plastic trash cans, and use those. Whatever you can find, whatever's cheap, definitely use if you're building a Skippy filter. And kind of an alternative version of that, a little bit more complicated, a couple more parts involved, but essentially the same thing, is a Wendy filter. And these are typically 5-gallon containers. Today I'm going to be using a 2.5 or a 2-gallon bucket for this, and it works the same way. You've got a pump that has a pre-filter, pumps the water in, goes down this tube all the way to the bottom where you have the grate. The water exits, it fills up this chamber. In this case, the Wendy filters use lava rock, but again, you can substitute that for foam pads. You can substitute that for whatever biomedia you have laying around. But the basic idea is to keep it heavy, keep it porous, and again, the water level goes about 3/4 of the way up. And then what happens is you have a standpipe. Instead of the overflow, which exits from the top, you have a standpipe, which means the water goes up to this point, and then it overflows into the standpipe, which then exits down here where the bulkhead is down low instead of up high, and then that enters your tank or your pond or whatever. Now, these are essentially the same filter, and the only difference really is the fact that this one just has the overflow up high. Since it's a larger container, oftentimes your pond sits about here, which allows your pond to be sitting on the floor and your Skippy filter to be sitting on the floor, and they work really well together. Whereas the Wendy filter is designed to be a little bit smaller. Oftentimes it's sitting on a ledge, which is right on top of your pond or your turtle tank or your stock tank or whatever. And therefore, you don't want the overflow up high because it would make a big splash. Instead, what you want is you want that overflow to be down low. That way, it's closer to your water level in your pond. So those are the two designs before we get building. And today I don't have a 55-gallon drum. All I have is a 2-gallon bucket. So I will be making a miniature Wendy filter, which does include this extra standpipe piece. Again, they both work in exactly the same way. So one isn't any better than the other. They're just kind of suited for different sizes and different applications. So let's go take a look at some of the parts you're going to need. Okay, and here are the parts. So first and foremost, what you're going to need is some sort of bucket, some sort of container. I have a 2-gallon white plastic bucket, which has a lid as well. And then what I'm going to need is some piping. So since I have a small pump, all I need is the 1/2-inch PVC pipe. If you have a larger pump, if you have a larger filter, you're going to need a larger size PVC pipe. So just look at the diameter of your pump line, and make sure that your PVC is quite a bit larger than that, just to make sure that you don't have any restriction in flow. Otherwise, you might have an overflow. But so you're going to need that, and then also what you're going to need is a bulkhead that will be attached to the side of the bucket, and then what you're going to need is two fittings which attach to your bulkhead. So this one threads to the outside here, and then this other one threads to the inside here. And then what you're going to need is a 45 elbow and a true elbow. Both of those are 1/2-inch. Actually, all of these fittings are 1/2-inch. And then what you're going to need is a drill. And I have a diamond hole saw on here, which is a little overkill, but it just so happens to match the bulkheads that I have. So that's what I'm going to be using to cut my holes. And along with that, you're going to need some sort of container to stick at the bottom of your filter. So I just have a cheap plastic 2-gallon bucket which had a plant in it. So what I'll be doing is cutting this down and using that at the bottom of my filter. Then what you're going to need is the pump itself. I just have a small aquarium pump here, and you'll notice I have a pre-filter on it. That's fairly important because the Wendy filter or the Skippy filter can't take a lot of large particles. So if you can trap those on the outside of your pre-filter before you get to your filter, that's best. And then you're going to need any sort of biomedia you can find. In this case, I just have a couple pieces of foam for demonstration purposes. And then the last thing you're going to need is some GE silicone number 1. This is clear. This is 100% silicone. This is absolutely safe for your turtles and your aquariums once it's cured. So those are the parts you're going to need, and let's get building. So here we go. I start with a potting soil bucket, and I cut the base off. I'm going to discard the top and keep the bottom to it. And that's going to go in the bottom of my bucket. You see I drill a hole here. I'm using a diamond hole saw. It's not the right thing to cut plastic. If you have any other type of hole saw, it's probably going to work out better. So next what I'm doing is drilling another hole in the top, on the lid of the bucket. And then I'm just measuring and cutting my PVC tube. And this is where the water is going to flow in through. And you notice I drill some holes in the bottom of that pipe. And then I just do a little bit of a test fit to make sure everything works. And I've got my 45-degree elbow on the top there. And my inlet is complete. The next thing I need to do is drill the outflow hole. And you see I have a little bit of a trouble here with the diamond hole saw. But I managed to cut the hole, I clean it up a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is insert my bulkhead. Screw it down, test fit. You'll notice that the bucket does give a little bit since it's plastic, so there is a pretty good seal there, but It's not great, but I just wanted to put everything together and test fit everything. You'll notice I have my elbow on the inside and my overflow pipe attached on the inside there. And the next thing I'm going to do is just throw in some filter media real quick and put everything together the way it would appear. Next, I'm just going to kind of break everything down a little bit, and to make sure I don't have any leaks out of that bulkhead, I'm going to loosen it up a little bit and take some silicone and just apply a bead of silicone around the outside edge of that bulkhead, and then when I tighten that down, I'll have a nice seal with the bulkhead and the silicone to make sure I don't have any drips. That's really about it. Of course, the silicone is going to take 24 hours to 48 hours to dry. Alright, so here's the finished product. Now, I don't have a pond pump that's strong enough to pump water this high. So what I did was I just took the outflow tube from my XP3 and hooked it up to the top of the Wendy filter here, or the Skippy filter, to simulate a pond pump. But if you have a pond pump, especially if you have one with a pre-filter on it, this is where it would the water would be entering. And I'll just open this up a little bit so you can peek inside, and you'll see it's pretty empty right now. But what I'm going to do is turn the pump on, and we'll see this thing fill with water. So here we go. It fills from the bottom. The water goes through this tube all the way to the bottom, and then it comes through the bottom, and this chamber would be full of sponges or other filter media. And what's going to happen is the water level is going to hit that overflow tube, and then it's going to exit here. Now, the silicone did dry for 24 to 48 hours, and because this is a plastic bucket, I did get a pretty good seal. That surface was fairly flat, just by tightening the bulkhead down. But the silicone adds that extra seal to make sure you're not going to get any leaks. I didn't decide to cement my PVC in place, but that's also another good idea if you don't want any leaks. And as you can see here, this is producing quite a bit of flow. Actually, what you'll notice is it's actually too much water. My pump is too powerful for the size of the pipe that's used here. So what I would want to do is make sure that my size pipe is larger than the flow rate of the inlet tube here. You'll notice that they're about the same size, and therefore it's putting out a lot of water. And what that will do is you're at risk of overflowing your bucket here if your overflow can't pull as much water as is entering the bucket. But I just wanted to demonstrate how this works and what it looks like when it's finished, and hope you guys go build one. I mean, this right here, it's only a 2-gallon bucket, so it's not going to filter much more than, you know, maybe a 55, 75 gallon tank. If you're talking about a stock tank, you're probably looking at like a 5-gallon bucket or a couple 5-gallon buckets to filter a 300-gallon stock tank. And if you're talking about a pond outdoors, you're talking about 1 or 2 55-gallon drums to filter, you know, a pond that might be several thousand gallons of water. But this is just a quick demonstration of how this filter works. All you need is a pond pump to make it work. And then if you ever need to rinse out your media, which it's actually recommended that you don't do very often, all you do is have to pull this top off, and then you can get to your media. Again, I used sponge filters here, but you could use lava rock. You could use anything that has a lot of surface area to it. And so any sort of biomedia would work well. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and see you guys later.